Mr. Bill Lowe, Principal of Central Coast Grammar. Welcome to Business Insider. Welcome to Fortunity.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. We just discussed 3 years, 4 years in the hot seat. What's changed with the grammar in that time?
Well, the grammar was in very good condition when I took it over, and there's always further to go. I think one of the significant things that we did was to do a stock take in the first year, led by the board with a lot of input from me and some other.
That doesn't sound like much fun.
Professionals.
A stock take isn't on the top of my list. What did you stock take?
We thought it was really important to get a sense of where our students thought the school was at, where the staff thought the school was at, the parents and the broader community. So we polled all of our staff, every single parent, and about 25% of our students randomly. And we asked them everything. What do you think of our facilities? What do you think of our fee structure? How well do you think that we're connected into the Central Coast community? How well are we preparing our students for the challenges, not of tomorrow, but for 5, 10, 20 years? What did they think about our academic performance, our co-curricular performance, community programs, leadership programs? And so we just had a survey tool where people were able to provide that information anonymously.
That's set against a background where you were director of the public area on the coast. Were any of the findings that you found through that survey, did they surprise or please?
Oh, look, I think what a strategic review should do is what that one did. There weren't too many huge surprises. I think what the review indicated that the things that from a distance I felt the school was good at, some of those were even better than I thought. And the things that I thought from a distance perhaps the school should have been a bit more focused on, sometimes the feedback was yes, you need to do more of that. There were very few issues where I had a view and the board had a view that was discounted by parents and teachers.
Okay. If we talk about going forward, where are the opportunities for your business? Because you've really undertaken a strategic review of your business. What's going to change?
Absolutely. Well, we're into the fourth year of our strategic plan, and interestingly, we're one of the few schools, and I'm not sure how many businesses actually do this, but we kept our strategic plan to 7 key pillars that we thought. So not try to cover all the business of the school every day, but 7 areas where we thought we needed to make a mark. And then what happens is that annually I report to the whole school community through the headmaster's report, which reports in relation to each of those areas.
Should anyone choose to visit your site, the report is there?
Well, the report is there with the strategic plan, but not only this year's report, last year's report and the years before. So if people have an interest, they can scan that and have a look through it. And interestingly, just this year, we've had contact from an ex-student in Macau who read the report and the strategic plan. He works in Macau and has indicated he'd love to get back engaged with the school, and was delighted about the sort of direction the school was taking.
Fantastic.
So that's very encouraging.
And I suspect you know that not many businesses do that strategic planning as fully as you do. So it's mind you, it's what we all need right now. So there's a lot of resources across education on the Central Coast at the primary and secondary levels. Are there opportunities for that to work better between the public and the private sector? Are there alliances to be made?
There are huge opportunities. There are some headsets to be broken down. not mine, but I think there are some headsets on the part of some other people. But on balance, I think that the benefits that will come out of a stronger collaboration between independent schools, not just across independent schools, but also with schools from the Catholic sector and from the public school sector. There will be some tensions at times, and people will have their business that they need to manage. But on balance, for the whole community, the benefits far outweigh.
So what are some of those things we should be looking at?
Oh look, probably one of the most obvious ones is the sharing of staff expertise and importantly, professional development for teachers. So what currently happens is that many teachers from the Central Coast, regardless of what sector they're in, they will be travelling to Sydney or to Newcastle for some of their professional learning. One of the things that we've recently set up, and we're already having teachers and heads from other schools on occasions attending at our school, is that we've got high-speed video conferencing. So we can actually lock in to a visiting speaker that might be in Sydney, and we can have an online conference with that person. And what I've tried to do is to make that available to other schools on the basis of that's one of the ways we can put back into the broader community. That works very well. We've clearly got an enormous investment and a lot of expertise at our place in technology, and we're very, very happy to share that. So we have 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years offered workshops after school, which we've made open to any teachers from any school on the Central Coast, and they're well attended. So I think there's those sorts of things. I think the getting the schools to come together as one community, not all the time, but for one community, is a benefit to everybody.
Can we talk about the community, because we are an unusual community here on the Central Coast. Do the schools have a role in accelerating bringing that community together, or do you expect the community, or would you like the community to be more involved in what's happening in education?
Well, I think that to a degree, I currently enjoy somewhat of a privileged position in terms of our community. Our community do tend to be particularly involved. That's a lasting legacy of the 4 founders of the school, if you like, 27 years ago. I mean, it was set up as a community school. There was some strong principles at the time that while this was going to be an independent school, it was not going to be an elitist independent school. It was to be a school where a whole range of people, of course there's a fee structure, so that eliminates some people, but was never set up to be an elitist school on the Central Coast. And I think that ethos has carried through. So we have a good, engaged community, and I think there is plenty of opportunity for more crossover.
The development and those opportunities of crossover, but to build strong leaders, are we doing enough at schools now, considering the environment we're sending the kids out into?
Well, I think that arguably schools are doing more than in most other places. If I think about the opportunities that exist, and let me speak sort of a little bit more broadly perhaps than just my school, but the quality students that you see engaged in debating and public speaking, and the sense of justice that students have, that their engagement in Indigenous affairs on occasions, their engagement and understanding of what's happening overseas, I think, is better than I've ever seen.
Fantastic.
And I do think that, of course, there are a proportion of youth, and we have some of those on the Central Coast that are troubled. But let's not get that mixed up. Our young leaders are better than they were 5 years ago, and they're better than they were 5 years before that. I think they're just quite outstanding. And very often they are able to engage in much more informed, calm, intellectual debate than many, on occasions, business leaders and politicians that I see. So I really, I'm very encouraged and very optimistic about the future of our young leaders. One of the and they're across schools. I mean, we have a lot of those students at our school, but I've attended some of the public speaking competitions, and those students exist in all of the schools. They exist in the state schools, and they exist in the Catholic schools and the other independent schools. And I think it would be a great eye-opener for some of, and I know you're not saying this, but for some of those people who may be a bit negative about our youth, to go and see them. Yeah.
We might talk later about bringing that youth to Business Insider, because we can all benefit from that sort of exposure.
Absolutely. They're I mean, they're bright, they're enthusiastic, they know much more about their world than we ever knew. They care. Many of them give up times, their holidays, to go and do community service, sometimes on the Central Coast, but sometimes overseas as well, in terms of working in orphanages. We have a program ourselves where every year we send students to Cambodia to build houses, and of course the benefit they get out of that is enormous.
Do you get enough, can businesses on the Central Coast, are there opportunities for them to embrace the students and work closely with education facilities on the coast? Or
Oh, absolutely.
how does that happen?
Look, I would think that any principal on the Central Coast would love to continually increase their relationships with individual businesses, business generally. Certainly we're alert all of the time to every opportunity, and I know that some of my colleagues in the Catholic sector and in the public sector would be exactly the same. So there are a whole range of things. We've got so many talented professionals and business people out there that the sort of mentoring that can be provided to students, learning about business that you can't learn from a textbook. And certainly in our own case, we have today, we're running a fair, an economics fair, and that's been informed by people from the business community. We have assessments for our Year 10 students, where students prepare a business case for a particular area that they might have an interest in, and that's actually judged not by teachers but by people coming in from the business community. So I think the interchange is great, and I also think for Central Coast businesses, it's very much in their interest to engage, because many of our more able students are looking down the railway line. Yeah, and so rather if you can get some of those people engaged early, you know, the old notion of cadetships, the old notion of supporting some of those students through a scholarship while they're perhaps, you know, in later school or at university, maybe more of them will stay here.
It's an exciting space, and we need to talk as a business community with more principals, I think, so we'll see what we can push there.
Yeah.
A measurement for 2012, 2013, what would you like to see change within your school?
Oh, okay. Well, our schools, we're continually pushing in a whole range of areas. Of course, what we benchmark ourselves against is our strategic plan. So one of the areas that we continue to focus on is academic achievement. And I think that that is an area that every school on the Central Coast, indeed every school, but every school should be focused on and never satisfied with. Not academic performance to the exclusion of everything else. We believe very much that the students need to be balanced, so we have a strong co-curricular program, strong wellbeing program, community service program, leadership diploma, those sorts of things, but academic performance is, I think, absolutely critical. So I would want every student on the Central Coast to reach their academic potential, and that is that's just a journey. That's a journey.
We want every business leader to reach their business potential too. So we share that.
Yeah.
Bill, the discussion about so many of the Central Coast best and brightest leaving to work in Sydney or Newcastle, does that get talked about by your students? Do they see, is that conversation being had by them about their futures?
Yes, it is. It is, and there is a big attraction in Sydney for students, and we need to work hard. So there's a balance. I mean, some of our students will go overseas. In fact, I think many young people in the future will spend time overseas and interstate. What we don't want to do is have a situation where every able, gifted student is going to Sydney if they can. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there with our local university in promoting things that are happening there, but also with business. And look, young people, we're talking about people who they want a rich life. They want more than just their study and just their work. They want sporting opportunities. They live here in a fantastic environment, beautiful beaches and so on, but it's not enough. And the students often talk about, and lots of young adults that I know, my own daughters in their mid-20s, they love coming here, but there's not a lot for them to do when they're here. So there isn't an entertainment area, precinct for them. So yeah, the students talk about it a lot. They talk about it a lot.
And the opportunity is for us to build that future for them. So it's good to come back, good to stay, good to live.
Absolutely, absolutely. People. In fact, I think the young people could inform a lot of the debate about the importance of economic development on the Central Coast, and they seem to be a group that have been left out of it. The debate seems largely to sort of be going on at the macro level. I'm not, I'd like to see a more rigorous debate about some of those issues at the political level than I think that we're currently seeing. And there appears to be a small group of people who have very, very strong opinions about what shouldn't happen on the Central Coast, but really the people who are going to be most affected and have a lot to contribute. These students in late high school, they're not kids. They're young adults. They're hugely intelligent. They've got opinions. If we continue in this way of them being marginalised or some notion that some people have that the Central Coast should be like it was 30 years ago, well, one thing's for sure, these students will keep going south. And they'll go south to live, and they'll come back here to see their parents, and that'll be it.
Bill, we will do all we can to create that discussion with those young adults.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.